Hey, welcome back. We are in day 3. And so if you're new to this, let me just encourage you to keep pushing, all right? Because it may seem like, this is taking a while each day. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it is the most important and influential book in all of human history. And I think it's worth it. What if God had some things he wanted to say to you today? Additionally, there was a big study done where people who read the Bible four or more days a week actually had tremendously more spiritual growth. It's almost like 4 days plus per week is almost this magical number where it's like they actually called it the rule of 4 because massive amounts of increase in spiritual depth and witnessing to other people. It's incredible. So just keep on pushing. All right. Matthew chapter 7 through 9 is what we're reading today. And in Matthew 7 through 9, Jesus wraps up what's called the Sermon on the Mount, right? So he wraps that up in Matthew 7, and he talks about, not judging others and living the golden rule and all of those kinds of things, and closes by saying, if you hear the things I say, and then you do them, you're like a man who built his home with a firm foundation on a rock. But if you hear them and you don't do them, you are like a man who built a house with a foundation on sand. If you've ever had foundation problems, you know how the cracks appear above windows and the around walls and around doorways and sometimes in the floor, and the things start sagging, right? If you ever had foundation problems, it can get bad in a hurry. And homes don't sell if they have a ton of foundation problems. It's like, you got to fix that before I'll even buy it. In the same way, Jesus asks you to look at your life and ask yourself if you are being a hearer but not an obeyer. And again, I want to point out that this is a powerful idea. Good men don't say that. Nobody says that unless he's crazy and egotistical, or unless he's God and he knows something we don't know, right? And so it's an incredible wrap up to that sermon where he's just called us to do some incredibly hard things, remarkably hard things, like you have heard it said, not to commit adultery. But I say to you, don't even lust after a woman, or you've committed adultery with her already in your heart. What? Like, how hard is that? Right? He's calling us to be godly all the way to the inside, to the unseeable, non-public parts of us. And that's incredibly challenging. The rule of God does not just extend to outward obedience, but to inward realities and holiness, purity, dedication to God. So that's what he's calling us to. Now, right after that, he launches into chapter 8 and 9, which is this like action-oriented. He's going out, he's healing people. There's lepers who believed. It closes out in verse number 29 of chapter 7 saying he taught them like one who had authority. Now remember, we talked about the big idea of the kingdom, and then it says he taught them like one who had authority, which is a right to rule, right? A right to speak with and expect to be heard and obeyed like a king, right? And then the very next verse, a guy comes to him after he came down from teaching on that hillside, and a leper came and said, Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean. Now, I want you to point out that Jesus taught them like one who had authority. This guy heard and he was like, I need to be healed. A leper, by the way, they were banned from society. You had to live in a leper colony outside your city. You couldn't come close. And this guy comes to Jesus and he says, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Jesus acted like he had authority and said he had authority, and this guy believed it. And Jesus uses his kingly authority and does the impossible. And Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him. That's unbelievable. And says, I am willing, be clean. And he does. Immediately, his leprosy was cleansed. In other words, Jesus begins to demonstrate that this kingdom that has come, has authority, that he has the authority to speak and do the impossible. So when he commands the impossible, like be holy all the way to the core of you, and then he shows that he can do those things and he can do the impossible. So That's an amazing idea. So he's going to this next couple things. He heals people, the faith of the guys, and he heals many. It says, and then he talks about the cost of following him, and then he calms a storm. Like he rules over all the things, and then he heals a paralyzed man, and then he calls Matthew, who was the guy who was this writing this, right, and then they ask him questions, and he restores a girl who's dead, and then he heals two blind men, and he heals a man unable to speak. Like these are unbelievable realities. Well, what's happening? Kingdom of God came close, and Jesus is proving he has the authority to say to you, these are the things you ought to believe. Now that's amazing. Let's read it together. All right. See you tomorrow.